Welcome to Grail Country. Shari, it's just Shari and I today as we move forward with our meditations on the Divine Comedy. Um, I have maybe Ted will join us in the middle of it. We'll see. Yeah, so we're on Canto VII now of the Inferno. And I believe, is it my turn to read? I believe it
It can
is.
be.
I believe it. I think that's the right rotation.
Go for it.
So let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. All right.
Hang on here.
Can you confirm that you can see my screen, Sherry?
I see it.
All right.
Yeah.
So here we are, Canto 7. Papa Satan, Nalepe. Judas clucked and stuttered in his rage, and my all-knowing guide to comfort me. Do not be startled, for no power of his, however he may lord it over the damned, may hinder your descent through this abyss. And turning to that carnival bloat, cried, Peace, you wolf of hell. Choke back your bile and let its venom blister in your own throat. Our passage to this pit is willed on high by the same throne that loosed the angel wrath of Michael on ambition and mutiny. As puffed out sails fall when the mast gives way and flutter to a self-convulsing heap, so collapsed Plutus into that dead clay. Thus we descended the dark scarp of hell to which all the evil of the universe comes at last, into the fourth great circle and ledge of the abyss. O holy justice, who could relate the agonies I saw? What guilt is man that he can come to this? Just as the surge, Charybdis hurls to sea and crashes and breaks upon its counter surge, so the shades dance and crash eternally. Here too I saw a nation of lost souls, far more than were above. They strained their chest against enormous weights, and with mad howls rolled them at one another. Then in haste rolled them back, one party shouting out, Why do you hoard? And the other, Why do you waste? So back around that ring they puff and blow, each faction to its course, until they reach opposite sides, and screaming as they go, the madmen turn and start their weights again. The crash against the maniacs, and I, watching, felt my heart contract with pain. Master, I said, what peoples can these be? And all those tonsured ones there on our left, is it possible they all were of the clergy? And he, in the first life beneath the sun, they were so skewed and squint-eyed in their minds, their misering or extravagance mocked all reason. The voice of each clamors its own excess when lust meets lust at the 2 points of the circle where the opposite guilt meets in their wretchedness. These tonsured race of greed were priests indeed, and popes and cardinals, for it is these the weed of avarice sows its rankest seed. And I to him, Master, among this crew, surely I should be able to make out the fallen image of some soul I knew. And he to me, this is lost ambition. And their sordid lives they labored to be blind, and now their souls have dimmed past recognition. All their eternity is butt and bray. One crew will stand tight-fisted, the other stripped of its very hair at the bar of judgment day. Hoarding and squandering wasted all their light, and brought them screaming to this brawl of race. You need no words of mine to grasp their plight. Now you may see the fleeting vanity of the goods of fortune for which men tear down all that they are to build a mockery. Not all the gold that ever was under the sky could buy for one of these exhausted souls the fraction of a pause. Master, I said, tell me, now that you touch on this Dame Fortune, what is she, that she holds the good things of the world within her clutch? And he to me, O credulous mankind, is there one error that has wooed and lost? Is there one error that has wooed and lost you? Now listen and strike error from your mind. That king whose perfect wisdom transcends all made the heavens and posted angels on them to guide the eternal light, that it might fall from every sphere to every sphere the same. He made earth's splendors in a like decree, and posted as their minister this high dame, the lady of permutations. All earth's gear she changes from nation to nation, from house to house, in changeless change through every turning year. No mortal power may stay her spinning wheel. The nations rise and fall by her decree. None may foresee where she will set her heel. She passes, and things pass. Man's mortal reason cannot encompass her. She rules her sphere as the other gods rule theirs. Season by season, her changes endlessly. And those whose turn has come, press on her so. She must be swift by hard necessity. And this is she so railed at and reviled that even her debtors in the joys of time blaspheme her name. Their oaths are bitter and wild, and she, in her beatitude, does not hear. Among the primal beings of God's joy, she breathes her blessedness and wheels her sphere. But the stars that marked our starting fall away. We must go deeper into greater pain, for it is not permitted that we stay. And crossing over the chasm's edge, we come to a spring that boiled and overflowed through a great crevice worn into the ledge. But that foul water, black from its very source, we found a nightmare path among the rocks and followed the dark stream along its course. Beyond its rocky race and wild descent, the river floods and forms a marsh called Styx, a dreary swampland, vaporous and malignant. And I, intent on all our passage touched, made out a swarm of spirits in that bog, savage with anger, naked, slime besmutched. They thumped at one another in that slime with hands and feet, and they butted and they bit, and each would tear the other limb, as if each would tear the other limb from limb. And my kind sage, my son beholds the souls of those who lived in wrath. And do you see the broken surfaces of those water holes on every hand, boiling as if in pain? There are souls beneath that water, fixed in slime. They speak their piece, and end it and start again. Sullen were they in the air that made sweet by the sun. In the glory of his shining, our hearts poured a bitter smoke. Sullen we begun, sullen we lie forever in this ditch. This litany they gargle in their throats, as if they sang but lacked the words and pitch. Then, circling along that filthy wallow, we picked our way between the bank and fen, keeping our eyes on those foul souls that swallow the slime of hell. And so we came to the foot of the great tower that has no name.
Want me to read the poem from
Yeah,
this?
I'd read David's poem for this canto.
Okay. Let's see here. Lady Fortune, Inferno, Canto 7. Wheeling round and passing back and forth, the order of my loves is out of sync, while apathy and anger find their worth. Lady Fortune's wheel will rise and sink, taking me to unseen heights and depths, while I am written out in pen and ink. My sins exposed in their expansive breadth, sullen sighs set the brackish marsh to boil, and to find a way across I am inept. Will I find my way beneath the soil? What are you thinking? You're
Well,
thinking.
that last line was like, "Will I find my way beneath the soil?" Is like that's a powerful image.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at his own mortality there.
I don't even know.
It's like when I'm dead in the ground.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, will I find my way?
Yeah, after death. Yeah.
Yeah.
That the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that last line of David's poem struck me. It's and it's actually it struck me because it's like my mind, like reading this canto, it's like my mind never really went there at all.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
No, mine either, actually. Yeah.
So it was like
that
was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
That's an intuition on his part there.
Yeah, that's something that he had that I didn't. So what do we think here? I suppose that we should talk about like that opening line, which is like,
maybe you could give me some background because, like I say,
it's basically in the translation we're using, he plays with the way it's rendered a little bit, but it's basically untranslated. because no one has actually figured out what the translation should be.
Oh, wow.
It's very much debated. There are a bunch of competing theories, and some theories are more popular than others, but it is very much disputed. The one that, yeah, I don't really know. And actually, I kind of like read over a bunch of the theories this morning when I came across the line and was like, oh, wait a minute, like what is
I
this?
just
And
read the
I
footnote.
so I like did the background research, and it's like, oh, okay. Um and yeah, there's actually, well, I'll just share, this is what the footnote in the Chartese translation says. It says, Papa Satan Alepe. Virgil, the all-knowing, may understand these words, but no one familiar with merely human language has deciphered them. In Canto 31, the monster Nimrod utters a similarly meaningless jargon, and Virgil there cites it as evidence of the dimness of his mind. Gibberish is certainly a characteristic appropriate to monsters, and since Dante takes pains to make the reference to Satan apparent in the gibberish, it is obviously infernal and debased, and that is almost certainly all he intended. The word Papa is used here probably means Pope rather than Father. The Papa Santo is the Pope. Papa Satan would be his opposite number. And the original, the last word is Alepe, Aleppe. On the assumption that jargon translates jargon, I have twisted a bit to make it rhyme with me.
Okay, wait, I have a thought, because there's a line in here where it appears to me from the reading that almost everybody there is clergy. Do I have that right? Or many?
Well, they focus on that's who they draw to. I mean, obviously, there are going to be souls that aren't clergy, but a lot of the
Right.
people that's what's focused on
That's
is
what's
where our
focused on.
attention is only drawn to the clergymen who are, yes.
Right. And then the theme is hoarding and wasting.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would, like, in the sense that in the charity translation, he just explained that Papa would be the word for Pope.
Yeah.
I would say that this is like a critique of a very nimble little critique of some of the what do you call it? The excesses of the Catholic Church.
Well, so of the theories that I read, the one that let's look at the way that Dante, or excuse me, that Virgil responds. How does Virgil understand it, right? That should give us some insight. So Pluto says,
Plutus.
yeah, it's the god Pluto. Let's
Mm-hmm.
do it. So Papa Satan Alepe. Plutus clucked and stuttered in his rage. My all-knowing guide to comfort me. So this is how Virgil responds.
Mm-hmm.
Do not be startled. So he cautions Dante not to be startled. For no power of his, however he may lord it over the damned, may hinder our descent through this abyss. So whatever he says has to be a challenge, because that is how Virgil is understanding it. It's like a challenge. So the one,
Well, Pluto is the god of wealth, right?
yes,
Yeah, I think
yes.
that's important.
Eh,
So he's saying, don't be startled, for no power of his meaning Pluto,
mm-hmm.
who is the god of wealth. Okay, so
Right.
if you think of it from a poetic standpoint, at least the way I'm thinking about it, uh, like, because we often succumb to the power of wealth. Like if someone, has a lot more money than us, then we feel powerless beneath them, right? It's just because I don't know why actually, but we think that money indicates, if someone has acquired a lot of money, they must be stealthier,
Mm-hmm.
wiser, smarter, all these things, right? Than we are. And so in a sense, there's a reason to submit yourself to it. But it seems to me like Virgil's saying here, don't be influenced by this wealth. Okay. Don't, he might lord it over the damned, right? But
Right.
it's not going to hinder your descent.
So let me go over some of these theories with you. This is there's actually a Wikipedia entry entire just on this line.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And it's let me actually share my screen. Uh, uh, oh, that's not the right one. That one. I need to put it on that one. And then pull it up. Oh, I have it on the wrong. Okay, now I need to drag it to the right screen. Okay, there we go. All right. So I'll have to look up again because my monitor's above me. But uh so um so the earliest interpretations it goes over the word pape might be a rendering of Latin papai from the Greek papai. Both words are interjections of anger or surprise. The word Aleppi could be an Italian version of the word for Aleph, the Hebrew letter.
Uh-huh.
The consonant shift here is comparable to that in Giuseppe, the Italian version of the name Joseph. In Hebrew, Aleph also means number one or origin that contains everything. It may also be interpreted as a metaphor for the head, the first and foremost. This was an attribute of God in late medieval expressions, meaning the majesty of God. Aleph was also the medieval introduction, like, "O God." With these interpretations, the verse would mean, O Satan, God King." Which would, that interpretation would be consistent with the way that uh Virgil reacts. Like, okay, your authority doesn't matter in the here. So he begins because his response is to he responds to it as if it were a claim of authority, because his response is to say your authority is lower than the authority that authorizes this journey.
Yeah, but he mentions Pluto. Like you can't, I don't think you can skip
Well,
over
that's
that.
because that's who the speaker is.
Right.
That's who that's who says it. That's who makes the invocation. That's who speaks that line.
so then Pluto is Satan?
No, he's not. He's evoking Satan.
Oh, Pluto is invoking Satan.
That's the one thing that's clear, is that in some way Satan is invoked. That's the one thing that's clear in the line,
Right.
is that Plutus is invoking Satan.
Invoking Satan.
But in what way exactly is then there's a prayer theory that basically is like interprets it as like a diabolical prayer to Satan by the demon.
Is it so the word Aleppi is this I mean the Satan part, sorry for interrupting, but the Satan part, the Papa part and the Aleppi part are indecipherable. Satan
Yeah,
is fairly clear.
correct.
Okay, so I'm just going to say this because I'm quickly scanning through these different theories, and I'm going to say that for Dante, because I think Dante is hiding a lot of critique on certain institutions and certain people, and certain modes of being in the world.
I'm gonna
He's
stop
hiding.
sharing since you scanned through the theories.
He 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 he's couching his critique, right? He's hiding it in poetic form.
Yeah, there are things that he says subtly that he could never say openly.
And so I would say he's saying all of those things. He's he really is. Like he could be the problem with the theory is that the person's trying to find the one thing that he's saying, but I don't think there is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of poems that mean many, many things. And that's the beauty of poetry, right? It's like fractal, it's multivalent. So, and I'm not saying that as a, a cure-all for the problem. I really believe that whether he was aware of it or not, and I think to a certain extent he probably is aware of it, but I don't think he's aware of how deep it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, yeah, I think that the exact meaning I don't think is that important. I mean, that can be left up for debate.
Well, it's beautiful in a sense that you can't figure it out.
But it's clear that its meaning is, it seems to me from the context, it's clear that whatever it means, it is it's a threat or an assertion of authority.
Mhm.
Because that's Virgil responds to it as if that's what it was. So
Mhm.
whatever it's a meaning, it was some kind of threat
And
or
he kind of hand waves it away, doesn't he? Don't you think?
yeah, he's like, yeah,
He's like,
basically you're too big for your britches.
don't worry about this.
Yeah. We operate from a higher authority than you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Peace, you wolf of hell, choke back your bile and let its venom blister your own throat.
Yeah. Right.
That's, he's
Right.
like, whatever,
So right,
whatever.
and bile, right? So it's that also, and choke back your bile. So it tells you like whatever he said, it was something that was angry and threatening.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So I think that's what's important is that we understand the intent of the words, even if we can't exactly translate the words.
So I'll ask a question, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
What what's the theme here? I mean, I think I know, but just for the sake of conversation, what's the theme in this circle of hell here in this canto?
Well, I mean, it's pointing toward the uselessness of earthly riches, um which makes the which sort of lends an irony to the sins in the circle of hell,
Yeah,
because by either hoarding something that didn't matter or
wasting.
wasting it and thereby treating it as more important than it was,
Mm-hmm.
then you haven't seen it for what it is, which is something that like basically it has no lasting, it's something of no lasting value.
Okay, so there's interesting parallels to scripture here because Jesus tells a few parables like this. Like he talks about the 10 virgins, right, who just waste their time. They
Mm-hmm.
waste their oil. They're not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of in that category. The 10 talents is someone who hoards, right, their
Mm-hmm.
talent and doesn't use it. And then those who expand their riches are actually congratulated. Like these parables have always given me a little bit of difficulty because there's also exhortation not to not to, like what he says to the rich young ruler, sell everything you have and follow me. And a lot of people latch on to that because that's like clear as can be, right? um but in the parable of the 10 talents, that's not what it doesn't seem to be what he's saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you think of that? Like, any thoughts?
I am
I don't have any.
no, I'm trying to right now what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to tie together what he's saying about wealth when he talks about these souls that either were hoarders or wastrels, and then to me that there's a link between what said there about
Mm-hmm.
those souls and then what said about fortune, because fortune is associated with um uh material fortune, like this, that's why it's like that's why he talks about how it's like so sought after, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a particularly like a I mean it happens to be a particularly big thing in Italian culture, right? So it's like I mean that's like Machiavelli had his famous line that fortune is a woman who must be seized and conquered by force. Like, so the idea of like that fortune was, um, you know, a very high aim was a big part of uh, medieval and Renaissance Italian culture. So, um, what's Virgil saying about fortune here? Because it's interesting because he seems to be saying that it's not the image of fortune you expect, right? It's like it's he begins by saying, well, let's go back and look at the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go and read it again. Let's go back and look at the lines. Right where I want to start, right where Virgil
Just give me a.
starts
Oh, you don't have line
giving
numbers.
the correct base. Oh, I don't have lines in my PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I found it. Master, I said, this is Dante begins asking the question. Master, I said, tell me, now that you touch on this Dame Fortune, what is she? That she holds the good things of the world within her clutch. So Dante expresses the opinion that fortune holds the good things in the world in her clutch, which is the kind of like, that is the very, like I said, that's like, and I don't think this is like, it's not particularly Italian. It's kind of like, that certainly you can trace this back to like the classical age too. It's like, they're like, it's, uh, it's a it's a widely held and a belief. In any case, so he gives this view that fortune holds the good things of the world in her clutch, and Virgil corrects him and says, "O credulous mankind, is there one error that has wooed and lost you?" So he's calling that view, the view that Dante just gave, an error that has wooed and lost. So
Yeah.
him viewing as like fortune as like holding the good things of the world in her clutch
Yeah.
is an error.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now listen and strike error from your mind. Okay. That king whose perfect wisdom transcends all, made the heavens and posted angels on them to guide the eternal light that it might fall from every sphere, the same.
From every sphere to every sphere, the same. Yeah.
Yeah. He made earth's splendors by like decree, and posted as their minister this high dame, the lady of permutations. All earth's gear she changes from nation to nation, from house to house, is changeless change through every turning year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is interesting because he's saying on the one hand that God has made it so that the eternal light falls on every sphere the same, and the earth's splendors are made in accordance to the like decree. But then fortune, who he calls the lady of permutations, he associates with change. So all that fortune does is just change where the light falls,
Yeah.
so to
It's
speak,
change.
right?
It's changeless change.
Right. Right,
Right.
exactly. So the balance of the balance, yeah, there's still like there's no change and there's no change and there's no change in the light. It just like it's illuming different places.
Yeah. And then he says, no mortal power may stay her spinning wheel. The nations rise and fall by her decree. None may foresee where she will set her heel. And this reminds me of Revelation, right? Where the, or no, is it Genesis, where the seed of the woman will bruise the head
Right.
of this. There's something about the heel and the head there. Actually I did a quick search on Safaria once about the heel, significance of the heel, and I don't remember anymore. It was a long time ago, but it was interesting. I just remember it was interesting because I think it's Jacob and Esau's birth. Jacob's holding on to Esau's heel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. So she passes and things pass. Man's mortal reason cannot encompass her. So she seems to be like a chaos theory, right? She's not really perceivable pattern,
Right.
right, in the
That's right.
world. She rules her sphere as the other gods rule theirs, season by season. And I love this line: her changes change her changes endlessly.
Right.
Just so good.
Yeah.
And those whose turn has come press on her so. She must be swift by hard necessity.
That's the idea. That's like the people trying to seize her because they think that but
Yeah.
she can't be seized though. It's what he's telling you.
Yeah. And they want to seize, they think she seizes, for one thing. They're
Yep.
projecting their own having thing
Yeah.
onto her, right?
Right. So this actually reminds me, that reminds me of the McDonald's story you like to tell about the flowers.
Yes.
That's what this is. This
Shall I
is the
read it?
same thing in
Shall I
Dante.
shall I read
You
it?
should share it with our audience and for those who haven't heard it yet, because I think that this is actually the way he's describing fortune here is very much in the same spirit.
I love this so much. And it's actually come back to me in a myriad of
Because
different
this
ways.
the very first thing he says about fortune, this is what's so weird, is the very first thing he says about fortune is he establishes there is enough.
Yeah.
There is enough, but where things are, it's continuous change. It's changeless change.
Okay, so this quote from George MacDonald is from The Wise Woman. If anybody ever wants to read something incredible, yeah, please read The Wise Woman. Won't you give me, okay, so the wise woman is now a small child. Okay, and she's set, and the one of the characters in the book comes across this small child who's sitting in a field of flowers. And the main character says to the small, calls her the beautiful child. Won't you give me a little flower, please, you beautiful child? There they are. They are all for you, answered the child, pointing with her outstretched arm and forefinger all round. But you told me a minute ago not to touch them. Yes, indeed, I did. They can't be mine if I'm not to touch them. If to call them yours, you must kill them, then they are not yours and never, never can be yours. They are nobody's when they are dead. But you don't kill them. I don't pull them. I throw them away. I live them. How is it that you make them grow? I say, you darling, and throw it away, and there it is. Where did you get them? In my lap. I wish you would let me throw one away. Have you got any in your lap? Let me see. No, I have none. Then you can't throw one away if you haven't got one. Such a genius dialogue.
Yeah, I really think that. Yeah, I think that was the perfect thing to bring up here in this context, because I think that is the spirit of what Dante's trying to tell us about.
That was a
fortune.
good remembrance there. I never even thought of that dialogue from the wise woman, and it's true. That's exactly what's going on there.
Yeah,
or at least in this case.
And which I think now I think we can begin to think out. We can begin to see the outlines of how this connects to the hoarders and the wasters.
Okay.
Because neither the hoarders nor the wasters appreciated wealth for what it is.
The line in what I just read there, when she says, well, how do you live them? And she says, I say, you darling. That little phrase, you darling, to me, it says everything about how this happens. And it's just to love something into existence.
Right. So
yeah.
How
so
can
like,
we,
okay,
let's talk about this. I want to do something that seems weird.
Okay, good.
But I don't think it's that weird, because I think if you start connecting love to the analysis of most things, you can understand them better. So I want to talk about that. Okay, so I think you're exactly on the right path here. How can we think about wealth in a way that it is properly governed by love as its principle?
I think it has to be seen as a gift.
Right, exactly right. Which is again back to that little story, right?
Exactly.
And that is precisely like both the wastrel and the hoarder do not see it as a gift.
No, they believe it belongs to them. And
Yep,
that's exactly what the little girl thought, right?
exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us back to this is why, and he this is why he goes from talking about wealth to talking about Lady Fortune. That's why he's making this link, and that's why he talks about fortune in this very, very interesting way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for the times, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right.
her
So
changes change her changes endlessly. And it's so interesting because
he's telling
who,
you to just let it be.
right? I know.
Don't fret so much about it.
Well, that's what Jesus says.
Yeah,
Don't worry
that's
about
right.
tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
But, you know,
consider the
like,
lilies of the field.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I find interesting here too is that it's not Dante making these conclusions. It's Virgil telling Dante. Dante
Yes,
comes
that's
from
right.
this world.
Dante
And
gives the
Virgil is he's the pagan, right? He's the
yeah.
pagan in limbo.
He's a
And
pagan who sees Sophia though.
well, yes, I know, but I find that
That's the
that
other
is
thing
what
that's
I find
obvious here is
so
that
beautiful.
this vision that this vision of fortune is a very Sophianic one.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And like when I first when you first mentioned that this is, you were telling me about fortune, I was thinking, oh no, she's not good, because when you read it, I thought she's good,
Hmm?
right?
Yeah, no, she is good.
And she
Right,
is good. And then I was relieved to know that she actually is good.
right.
I don't want anyone to tell me that she's not good, because to me, when you read this,
And
I'm
also, okay,
she's
so
good.
remember, think about, okay, I think we're onto something here. So think about, so I just made an observation about how Sophianic this vision of Dame Fortune is here in Dante, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you are very, very fond of talking about the connection between the Virgin and the Whore of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other way of viewing Fortune is
Is the
very
horror.
much as a horror.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, but spiritually speaking, that is the same principle, right? Like God talks a lot to the Israelites about whoring after other gods, right? And so it's a transactional relationship that they have, not one based on being itself, and allowing being itself to like George MacDonald says, love loves unto purity, and that which is not lovely, it makes more lovely, right? So that's God's process. That's God's the way, his operation, right? And it can be painful. And so what people want to do is they want to exchange that for a transactional, something they can control, right? Okay, I'll give you this, you give me that, and let's not take it any further, because I don't want to be transformed. I don't want to be perfected, because it hurts, right? Because love loves unto purity, and man, you can't stop it if you let it, right? If you open yourself up to that, it's going to hurt. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's that line, I kept thinking about that all week from last week. The more complete the soul is, the more of pain and pleasure it will feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really quite profound if you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
because we often misjudge our pain and our pleasure as sin,
Well,
right?
part of that expansion has to do with it has to do with the expansion of the I as well, right? Because if you the more perfected a soul is, the more it will see its connection to other souls.
Yeah.
And so it will have more of pleasure because it will be able to more fully celebrate the pleasure and the joys and the triumphs of others.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, it will have more of suffering, because it will also be able to, I think, ultimately for the good, be able to experience the pain and the suffering
Well, see, this is
of
what
its
I,
fellows
yes, I
to a
think
greater extent as well.
this is what the tears, I can never remember the name of them, but when, in the Orthodox tradition, they talk about tears of joy and sorrow mingled,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what
Right.
that is. It's ultimate pleasure and ultimate pain commingled, right?
Right.
And I think that we get ourselves really, we don't know how to interpret like when we feel the deepest pain, we think we're being punished, right? If we're in pain, we must be punished. We must be being punished. And that's why we're in pain. This is the book of Job, right? This is all the arguments from the friends. And if we feel pleasure, then we must be indulgent,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is where monasticism goes awry, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts self-flagellating, and people, like right now, let's say in the world, culturally speaking, you're
There's
not
enough
allowed to be.
there's enough of suffering in the world without you adding unnecessary suffering.
What do you mean? Are you just making a
I'm talking about when you go that when you go to those extremes of like self-flagellation. It's like,
right? And so I think that's what Dante's critiquing, right? Like in that line when he says the more whole, more complete, and I understand that as whole.
mm-hmm.
The more complete a person is, the more of pain and pleasure they will feel. It's like, it's, to me, it's an exhortation to move
Because your
deeper
wholeness
into
is
it.
because you are whole or complete by virtue of how much you can see your connection to everything
Others,
and everyone else.
others, yes,
And so there's no way that couldn't follow,
right.
because all joy becomes your joy. Like, as the further you expand out, like
Mm-hmm.
like you're moving, like the ultimate would be Christ, right?
Right.
Like all joy is Christ's joy, and
Yeah.
all suffering is Christ's suffering. Like there's
Yeah.
like it's joined to him. Like you cannot, like it's all there.
Yeah. And I think because we have the tendency to put the brakes on when it comes to pain and pleasure, we're going to wrongly judge the pain and wrongly judge the pleasure. Now I know there's hedonistic pleasure, and I know,
Mhm.
there's, that's all exist, and I understand that. I'm not like born yesterday. but
Well, but here's the
but we
thing. No,
often,
let me just make one. I want to say something about that, because that hedonistic pleasure, like this is where like Vervaeke's idea about reciprocal narrowing, and in the way that reciprocal narrowing is
mm-hmm.
is attached to addiction, is a way of understanding how this is connected to a contraction of, like, that behavior is not caused by an expansion, it's caused by a contraction, a
Mm-hmm. Right, right,
narrowing.
right, right. Yeah, that's the
So it's
difference.
actually the opposite movement of what we're
That's the
talking about.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah. Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to say about
I'm
that, but
sorry.
I was just thinking about how we want to put the brakes on that. Oh, I know. We want to put the brakes on those two things. And that's what pushes us into this transactional whoring after other gods, right?
Mhm.
Because when we put the brakes on those two things, because they feel so intense, right? We can't handle it. So then we decide we're going to control the feelings, right? The intensity. We're going to control the volume or the temperature, right, of these things by transacting with a god, right?
Right. Which is also to like mistake a part for the whole as well. Like that's one of the reasons it's a bad
Actually,
idea.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, totally.
So okay. Now I want to ask about, like, at the end. I want to talk about the, like, we talked a lot about we talked about fortune, we talked about the the souls who are wastrels or hoarders. Now I want to talk about what he says about the sullen, who are in this
Mm-hmm.
horrible state, like they're beneath the surface of this black muck, like crying out, like in some, like Well, he basically says it's like a song without any song like qualities, like basically like an anti-hymn or something, right?
In
That
the
they're
glory
crying
of his
out.
shining heart, our hearts
This
poured out.
litany they gargle in their
Mhm.
throats as if they sang but lack the words and pitch. So it's yeah. So
Kind of like how your boxes sound recently.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's up with that.
Just teasing you.
Maybe I need a new phone. Um, I'm such a cheapskate on my phones. Um,
I don't think it's your phone actually, but we can talk about that later.
okay, all right, all right. So in any case, but here's the okay. So I'm like I want to try to understand here. So he okay, let's go. He says, sullen were we, and the air made sweet by the sun, and the glory of his shining, our hearts poured a bitter smoke. Sullen were we begun, sullen we lie forever in the stitch. So that's what they actually say.
Okay, so can you is there any yeah, that's what I thought. I just was looking up sullen here. Bad tempered and sulky. Okay, so these are sulking people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand what that sullenness, like I think, to understand this properly. I mean, he sees a person who's descended into this sulking mode or sullen mode as being like stuck in mud.
Yeah, right. But I mean, here's okay. So I'm just trying to. It's like so we're talking about like they were joyless in life, and now they're even in a worse state here in the afterlife.
Yeah,
And it's
because
like, so where's the like why?
they didn't get what they wanted. I think. I mean, that's often. I mean, I just think about children. That's when they sulk. They sulk because they don't get what they want. And
Right.
this is about wanting. This the whole thing is about wanting, right? It's about hoarding and wasting, and it's about
I
entitlement. And I think sulky
Yes, I
people
think that's it. I think
feel
entitlement
entitled.
is there because remember what you said earlier about, and I think like I was trying to figure out like why this is in the chapter on, or like mostly he's dealing with wealth here, right? But I think what you said uh was is very illuminating there because what they're not seeing is the gift. The air made sweet by the sun. They weren't seeing it. Like so they're acknowledging that the air was made sweet by the sun, but they didn't appreciate it for what it was. So
Yeah, because yeah,
they
I
never
yeah
saw it as a gift.
no, and I mean you've certainly met people who feel entitled, right? And there's you cannot give them a gift. Even if you gave them a gift, they would feel that they deserved it,
So
right?
he's
That
not
they had earned it
right. So
in some way.
you don't think he's talking about depressed people here.
No, no, I think he's talking no, sulky, sullen and sulky is I mean, I just my mind automatically goes back to when my kids were little toddlers or even me. When I was a little kid and sulked, it was because I wasn't getting what I wanted. Sulking is not getting what you want. And I mean, it's a huge, I'll
So
just say
let's
this.
since I opened that can of worms, let's talk about depression for a minute and how is that different? How is that different from just being sullen? Like what distinction do we want to make here? Like what is different between the a soul that's suffering from depression and a soul that's sullen?
That's a
That's
good
honestly a
question.
question. It's not like that's just a question. I honestly don't know if I
Yeah.
can.
I mean, I have suffered from major depression, like diagnostically speaking,
Right,
major depressive disorder.
right.
So, and I never had the sense that I didn't get what I wanted when I was suffering with that depression. It was like I was overtaken by some evil shadow that just blocked out the sun, right? And it didn't even begin with
So but this is interesting because you said blocked out the sun. So
Yeah.
that actually points toward. So the sullen here, they were aware of the presence of the sun and the sweetness of the air, but seemed to not have appreciated it.
Well, that's why I said earlier, you can't give these people a gift. Even if you gave them a gift, they wouldn't see it as a gift. They would see it as something that they deserved.
Do you think
Okay.
some of the people that we categorize as depressed are actually in fact sullen?
Mm, I don't know. It would depend on the person,
Well, yeah. I mean,
like,
I'm just
yeah.
saying, is it possible that some of the
For
people
me,
that
these are two distinct categories. Like,
okay,
I think somebody who's sulking,
yeah,
can easily be, their mood can change very quickly when, if someone just gives them what they want, or they perceive that they're getting what they want, right? But someone who's depressed cannot be consoled,
right,
honestly.
yeah. I have very little personal experience with depression, but I have several people in my life who struggle with it, and I, I I have a hard time. I don't know what to do,
No, they can't be
because
consoled.
I'm one of those people that like tries to fix everything. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh so I'm just kind of looking up the etymology of sullen to see if I can get any. I wonder what he actually says in Italian here. I should look it
Yeah.
up. I've got the
I'm gonna check that other translation.
yeah, that's what I'm gonna do too, because it has the Italian. I'll have to find the line number though.
The line number, I can tell you. Um
All right.
120, 121.
Oh, you found the
Right.
line number already.
Well,
Hey, good
I
guys.
have it on my Kindle. I have the line number on my I mean, I don't know what it is in the other translation. I have to look. But it's 121 in
Hollander.
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
in the charity.
In the charity. Okay.
Okay, let me see here.
Well, I know it's toward the end. They were sullen. Tristi.
It would help if I put my
So
glasses on.
the Italian is tristi.
Wow, there's a whole different description in here of Lady Fortune, the Hollander.
Yeah, it's very different. I read both this morning.
Did you?
Hmm. Yeah, I've gotten into the habit of reading both just so I can compare.
Yeah, it just says sullen here too. We were sullen in the sweet air that in the sun rejoices. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's in Italian. It's just tristi, would just be like sadness, basically.
What is it? How do you spell it?
Tristi, Tristi,
Triste.
sorrowful, sadness.
Yeah.
So I think he is
I mean,
talking about people that we would call depressed in modern parlance, and I think he's kind of a not very understanding. Why is the question?
yeah, but in the context of the rest of the canto, I mean, if he's talking about wealth, he's talking about hoarding, he's talking about Lady Fortune, um, and I think that those three combined would indicate that at some point everything will be taken away from you, or you could be overly blessed with all kinds of things, right?
Well,
And you never really know when that's going to happen. It doesn't seem to have any pattern, because Lady Fortune is just, dumping blessings here and taking away from there, and
without wanting to like offend anyone, I think it's pretty safe to say, that if you are depressed or sorrowful, that you see your life as a burden and not a gift.
I don't I don't entirely agree with that.
Okay, that's
As a
I
person who's been there.
that's why I'm being tentative, because I don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't understand it from the
Yeah.
inside. So, but I think Dante is like doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is like making a snap judgment from the outside.
I actually don't see it that way, Nate. First of all, I don't think he's talking about people who are really depressed, like really suffer depression. I think he's talking about people who are just mad that they didn't get what they want, because I think that follows. It's like if he was talking about depression, that would just be some
You're
random
saying
thing
the fact that he is
thrown
putting
in
it
at the
in
end.
that he's putting this like right adjacent to the greed
Yes.
stuff is.
Yeah. It's all included, right? So you're going to have people, if you think about the Lady Fortune, and she's just, it seems random, right? What's happening? And then there's those who have, Lady Fortune hasn't blessed, right? Or took away their wealth, even. And they're sulking because they think they deserve it. They think that they've hoarded themselves in a sense, okay? And they've chased after this transactional relationship with the god, and they're entitled because they put so much work into it, and now they have nothing, and now they're just sulking, right? So I think, and I'm not a Dante scholar, but from the whole context of this canto, I think that particular description of sullen fits better than depressed.
Right. Well, I think it's pretty safe. I think we can say that Dante views the people that he's talking about. Whether he's talking about, like, the Italian word he uses, tristi, which means sorrowful or sad.
I wish I knew Italian better, because usually
Right.
words
But
like that.
both translators chose sullen, by the way. So both
Yeah, and
translations
that's
chose
particular.
sullen. So what is, I mean, sullen, I don't know, I just think of sullen as being basically a synonym for sad.
No,
Let me look at its etymology, though.
no, it's not. Sullen has a connotation of um someone who
This is
feels they're wrongfully
so
done
this
by.
is interesting. It originally meant unique, singular, remarkable, or strange. Solitary, lone, or unmarried. From the Anglo French solène, formed on the pattern of the Old French solène, lonely. Oh, that's interesting. So it's like there's a lot of, it's strongly connected to loneliness, which is
Yeah, but
interesting to me
that's the
because
derivative though. Like what's the actual, like, what's, like,
the just a straight definition.
it originates from there, but what does it say about the actual definition?
Well,
I'm
that was
curious.
the original meaning of sullen. Like, that was the earliest meaning of sullen was single, alone, one, like basically lonely. Uh, uh, Definition: showing a brooding ill humor or a silent resentment, morose or sulky, gloomy or somber in tone, color, portent, sluggish or slow. Those are the Merriam-Webster. Cambridge Dictionary says angry and unwilling to smile or be pleasant to people.
Yeah, see, there's a there
That
to
is
me.
that is very interesting, because that is very different than depressed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, Nate. That's what I'm,
Yeah.
like, there's a choice being made, right? to
Right.
be that way.
Right.
And with depression, there is no real choice, in my
Right.
opinion.
Right.
If it's a real depression, you know?
Right. Well, I also like the I also like the connection to the etymological connection to the idea of loneliness and singularity,
Yeah, well, somebody
because
who's
it
so,
shows a lack of, because there's a lack of connection,
yeah,
which
that's
is
right.
another,
And
which is again a narrowing, like we were talking about earlier, as opposed to an expansion
yeah,
or
I think
wholeness.
anybody who's sulking, you know, we always have an image of someone sulking in the corner, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very solipsistic, you know? It's
Yeah.
like there's nobody else there, just me. It's all about me, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my anger and my resentment and my
Yeah.
sadness at not getting what I wanted.
Have you ever, like, Archbishop Fulton Sheen had he had a sermon that he delivered on,
Mm.
basically on like bad mood and depression, and like at the beginning of the sermon he's like that you can either say, like, you can say the same sentence, good God it's morning, or good God it's morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally just, but his and then like he went on to basically say that, I mean, his prescription for anyone suffering from depression or bad mood is to get off your butt and go do something for somebody else.
Absolutely. I agree.
So
Yeah.
expand your expand your eye.
But I think
You
I
are
would just
not, you are not alone, and you never have been alone, and you never will be
right.
alone.
But I really, really want to make the distinction because if anybody who is actually depressed, um, not sulking, is watching this, I don't want them to think that they have made the wrong choice. Okay. Because a person who's depressed thinks very badly of themselves. Okay. They do. Like they're, yeah, they just, and I've always said that, you know, the impulse for suicide, it's not selfish in the sense that it's trying to hurt anybody, right? Or um, send a message, which is just ridiculous because you're not even there to watch the message arrive, right? If you actually do it, suicide to me is always a last, like, the person is left with no other options. That's how they feel. They have no other option because they feel so disconnected from the rest of creation
Right.
that
But that
that
disconnection is the thing. Right, right. That's exactly it. But that's the thing that I'm hitting on. That's like,
that well, and so it's essentially that they I have to be really careful about saying this because
no, but here's the
I don't
thing.
like to generalize
I
for
want to
everybody.
soften the I want to soften the blow before you deliver it, because I think we need to make this very clear. We live in a sick culture
Mm,
that makes it very easy for people to feel disconnected. And if you are depressed, it is not your fault.
that's right.
You live in a sick world that is making you feel that way, that it is our collective
Well, I actually
responsibility to
think
make
I actually
better, and God loves you, and it is not, and you are not alone, and you will never be alone. And the most pernicious lie ever told is that there is some possibility that you will end by dying alone.
I actually think that people who feel this are very sensitive to reality. Okay,
Yes.
that's why they
I
feel it.
think we put reality in air quotes there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the reality. Yeah, exactly. Small r reality.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
like they doubt their feeling and they think it's on them and all the rest of that. But um, there is a dare I say utility and I say this as someone who's been through it, to understanding that, oh no, I'm actually not wrong. We are very ill. We
Mhm.
are very disconnected.
Yes.
Right. And then
So
the
that's right,
response
Sherry.
could
That's right.
be,
Because in some ways, people who sense this and feel this, they're not incorrect in what they sense.
that's right.
But it's not the final story, because there is something beyond that, though, at the same
No, and I
time.
think, let me just say this. I think it's a calling to change that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like something is saying, look, look, look. And it's painful to see, just as it is for Dante in the poem. It's painful to see
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand. And it's, let me say, it's a gift in a way. Okay. Being able to feel that. And when we understand it, if we flip it over, right, and we understand it in these terms, we can move out into the world with that gift of connection, because that's what people who are depressed want.
It's
They
interesting
want
that these souls are
connected.
attempting to sing,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't sing.
Yeah, because they lack the words and the pitch, which is the inner, right? It's the inner becoming outer. Like, you can read a text like
Mhm.
AI, for example, although AI is getting really good at it now, but old AI, you could read it like that, or you could read it from your own experience,
Mhm.
right? Where you add the intonation and the pitch and all that stuff. That's the person's life coming out, right? And these people, there's no life, right, that can come out. It's just,
Well, and that
I don't
that
know.
life, like that life is
They're
connection. That's what.
gargling. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Like he says, as if they sang, right? So,
Mhm. But that
yeah.
there's a way in which there's that it's interesting, as if they sang. So it's just like, it's as if they sense there should be music, but they don't. They can't. I don't know if
Well, yeah,
they can they
it's,
hear it, but not I don't know. I'm going way just.
who knows? It's a
Yeah.
gargle, right? So
Argle.
maybe they're trying to sing, but they like, I think he doesn't even really know. Like, he's like, as if they sang,
Well,
but
their
lack the
throats are
words and
choked
pitch.
with mud. They're in like this,
Mm-hmm.
swampy black muck.
Yeah. Yeah. But I
They're
honestly
literally
think that these,
swallowing the
these are,
muck, right?
yeah, like Kerberos
So
in the last Canto.
the reason they can't make music is because they're swallowing the muck,
It's
right?
so funny. Yeah, that's there's two references and two different vices. One was gluttony and the other is um what would you call this?
Avarice,
Avarice.
yeah, is what's primarily dealt
Um
with in this. And somehow, like, and then the sullen, it's like, are also like in the end of this chapter as well.
mhm. I'll be curious if anybody has any comments about my take on the on sullen and sulky. Like,
Yeah,
I know
no,
there's been a ton
I
of
think no, I think it's yeah, I think that's right. I think you're making a valid point there.
I mean, there's been a ton of literature written on this poem. It's very old, and I
Right.
don't know anything about it. And so I'm not going to insist, but I just have a feeling that that's
Well, I
what
think that
what the poet would he would because the poet
It's in this chapter
he's
for a
following a
reason.
golden thread, right?
Yeah.
He's following a golden thread, and these things are connecting to each other. And so
Yes.
how does this sullenness connect to
Because everyone
fortune
here
and
did not
wealth and
appreciate
hoarding?
the blessings of fortune.
Oh, so you're looking at it from a
Who shines on all.
you're looking on are you looking on this as a abundance versus scarcity mentality?
Yeah.
I see.
And I think that the
Well, that's
way he
possible
talks
too.
about fortune brings that home, because it's like he's like like essentially he's drawing our attention to we're too much focused about like the particularity of the distribution rather
Mhm.
than looking at the fullness of the picture, which is an abundance.
I'm thinking about this as a Sophia versus Whore of Babylon, right? I'm seeing this as gift versus transaction. This is how I'm perceiving this,
Right.
Canto.
Well, if like okay, so let's talk about this in very practical terms.
But that would actually manifest abundance or scarcity, right?
Yes, well, and who's ultimately responsible for whether we are experiencing abundance or scarcity? We are. Why does Jesus spend so much time railing against the rich?
Mhm.
Because they're responsible for the fact that that they're responsible for the problem.
But
Like
then he punishes the guy that buries his talent in the ground.
right. That's right.
I love it.
Because because that's just as wrong.
That's the hoarding.
Right, because that's a hoarding. Even if you're not hoarding much, you're still like it's not like you should be putting whatever wealth you have to use to serve the good. And if you see that there is a place
Well, it's kind of
where
what you were talking about before. It's the difference between expansion and contraction, right?
yeah,
The 10 talents. Like, they're expanding they're given a certain amount of money and they're told to invest it and they're expanding it. But this guy just contracts it. Like he just
yeah,
buries
and
it.
it also points out who's like if we see scarcity in the world, it shows you exactly who's responsible for it.
Mm,
It's
mm.
not it's not Lady Fortune.
No, no,
It's
no, no. That's
us.
right. It's not chance, is what you're saying.
No.
It's not random. Yeah. Yeah. It's these tendencies to hoard and waste.
Yeah.
Like I used to work in a grocery store in the floral department, and I'd go to throw out old, flowers or plants that were dead or whatever. And we had this giant compactor, and I'd look down there, and it would be full of prime rib steaks and turkeys and chickens and just full. And I'm just like, and then, I drive home from work and there's all these homeless people sitting on the benches around
Right.
the grocery store. And I'm just like, what the heck? What's going on here? Like
That
this is
happened.
so
Right.
off.
Right.
This is so wrong.
There is enough.
There's
There
more than
always
enough.
there's more than enough,
More
and there
than
always
enough,
has
Nate.
been. That's why that's the first thing that we're told
It's
about
ridiculous.
fortune.
This is every day, Nate, that they throw this amount out. Every day, not once a week, not once a month. There's way too much waste.
Right.
And I actually liked the part in this canto where the hoarders and the wasters are arguing with each other,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Because I can see the argument on both sides. Like I could make those arguments, like, that you shouldn't be hoarding, right? And you shouldn't be wasting. So I'm wondering, what do you see as a
Well, they're
middle way?
both are greedy, right? If you're wasting, if you're wasting, then that means that you had more wealth than you needed for yourself, and you were not using your wealth to help your fellows because you wasted it all on yourself, and you're pursuing your whatever your particular pleasures are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a hoarder, it's just like you built it up, you just built up a big money pile just to
Yeah,
show you could do it.
there's a sense of ingratitude with wasters. Like that the waster doesn't see what he's received as a gift.
And it's all for you, regardless
Yeah,
of
that's what I
whether
mean.
you're a
Yeah,
hoarder or a
and it's not a
waster.
gift.
It's all for you. It's not a gift.
And the
It's not a
hoarder
gift.
too. And the
It's
hoarder too.
it's not a gift that you are supposed to grow
Right.
and to distribute
And to further give.
and to
Yeah.
further give and continue the
Yeah.
cycle of giving. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
like this is like what he's actually showing you, that it's like this whole idea, like this no the reason he focuses on the fact that the nations rise and fall and all that stuff is like the idea of the changeless change is because all of them are playing into the false vision of fortune that Dante gave before Virgil corrected him.
Right.
That's why Virgil begins, he's like, that's why he calls it changeless change. It's
Yeah,
like
he also
this stuff right here doesn't matter, and it's all because of people playing a dumb game where they think it's zero sum. But I told you, the very first thing I told you about fortune is that God has made his light shine through all the spheres.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, right. Yeah. Dante's question I thought was interesting because he said he acknowledges this randomness, right? This fortune. But he says, what is she? Like that's an existential question, right?
Well, his answer is like
She's changeless, change, right?
she's she seems to be the creation.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, because
Interesting name.
well,
That would
or at
make
least connected
that would make
deeply
her very
to,
Sophianic for sure.
right, yeah, because or at least deeply connected to the creation, because that's why it's like,
Well, that's true,
because
especially for medieval people.
right, because, well, let me go to the line, hold on a second here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go back to that line again. Okay. That king whose perfect wisdom transcend all, made the heavens and posted angels on them to guide the eternal light, that it might fall from every sphere to every sphere the same. He made earth's splendors by a like
Yeah, yeah.
decree.
Mm-hmm.
Earth's splendors, so the wonders of creation, right?
Season by
By
season,
like
yeah.
decree, and posted as their minister this high dame, the lady of permutations,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally. I see this. Yeah.
So she represents like nature, like creation, like it's continuous change that is somehow changeless.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's at its splendor and its beauty, which we want to what? We want to seize and keep for ourselves or waste.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's why she's here in this
Okay,
chapter.
yeah, I don't know why I never saw that, but
So,
just like wakey wakey.
but it's actually but it's actually given to all as God's gift.
Mhm.
And if it's falling on if those gifts are being distributed unevenly, it's because we're being bad stewards,
Yeah,
because we
absolutely.
are supposed to be the stewards of that gift. So, and managing your wealth poorly is what? It's bad stewardship.
Well, this is yeah, and this is interesting because that's what I've always that's what I've always posited is that our mission is to be stewards, right? Like God says, tend the garden, right?
Right.
It's husbandry.
Right. And
And husband
the answer to the question, am I my brother's keeper, is yes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But then, I listened to a really great I don't know what you call them, sermon or teaching from Rabbi Breidovitz.
Hmm.
And he talked about God's mandate for Adam. One was to tend the garden and one was to have dominion, right? These are like the two faces of humanity.
Hmm.
And he said, he was talking about in terms of contradiction, right? So some people would call that a contradiction,
Right.
but he said the purpose in that is that you synthesize those two things, right, to find that middle path. How do you have dominion and tend properly? And I mean, I kind of live like that because
Mhm.
I have a farm and I have livestock, and so I have to tending to me means letting things be, but keeping an eye on them. And then when something goes awry, dominion means stepping in and fixing it, right? So like yesterday, I had a sheep that was limping for a couple of days, and yesterday it was really bad. So I had to exercise dominion, right? I had to herd everybody. I had to deceive. I always feel like I'm deceiving them. I had to shake a bucket of grain, herd everybody into the barn, single out this ewe, halter her up, send everybody out, and they don't know what's happening. I'm just doing this dominion thing, right? It's not tending. It's not, it's not exhorting something. Come on, you can do it, right? It's tending to me.
It's
And
parenting. It's
yeah,
parenting, Sherry. It's
right.
parenting.
And but but we do have both of those mandates, right? And I think that if we do them in service to one another, then we're doing it right.
Right. That's exactly right. In service to one another. Because
Mhm.
yes, and this is like where John Vervaeke's understanding of agape as parental love is
Yeah,
so very good and so very
super good.
helpful, because it makes it very clear like what the church is supposed to be doing into the world, in the world,
Yeah.
which is to be practicing that kind of love. And it's the same love that a parent has for their child is the love that we should be extending to everything.
Hmm.
And that means for each other. That means that we should be helping to shape and form each other,
Hmm.
to make each other into what we will become. And that's the proper exercise of
And
dominion.
and
It doesn't
and
have
and
anything to do with lording it over
right. And
anyone.
if you're doing that properly in service, like if those two mandates are in service to each other, the tending and the dominion, then it will be agapic.
Yes.
You it won't be clutching and having, right? it will be it will be tending and
It will be love in the proper sense, because when
right. I
you
mean, even as a parent, you tend and you have dominion, right? There are
yeah,
boundaries
yeah,
in parenting,
right.
but those boundaries have to be extended in a way that are beneficial to the tending of your children, right? Not to constrict them, not to destroy them, right? Not to let them wallow in their own filth, like feedlots in the beef industry,
Right.
where they they put boundaries around these animals that are so tight that they're just knee deep in their own shit. That's not what you want, right? That's
No.
not the kind of dominion you should exercise, right?
Right. Right. Well, yeah, right, precisely right. Like, I mean, since you brought up this in the context of a rabbinical exegesis, I mean, that's why Jewish food laws are the way they are,
Yeah, yeah,
because they recognizes that that's not good enough.
yes. It's that balance, right? It's the balance.
That's why you pay so much money for kosher beef, because the godly way to do things is not necessarily the most profitable way.
It's not the having way, it's the
Right.
being way. It's the
So,
being way. Yeah, it's the being. Yeah, Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is your hard stop, my dear.
Yes, it is. Thank you for reminding me. I do have to go and spend the day with mom today.
How's she doing?
She's
Oh,
doing great. We had her over last night and we sang karaoke.
oh, beautiful.
I made chili. It was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Nice.
now we're gonna go she's at my sister's house, but my sister's going away, so we're gonna stay with her for the day
Yeah. Yeah.
and tend to her. So I
You
don't
can attend.
know. Oh, thank you for joining us. That we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.